Star Wars, the expanded universe. A universe so vast that has over 17,000 characters from various different eras, from Dawn of the Jedi to the Old Republic, to the prequels all the way to the Legacy era. This is the tale of over 17,000 characters throughout the Star Wars universe. This is our first step to a much larger world that exists in the Star Wars universe. This is the story beyond the movies. This is the story of the Star Wars expanded universe. A universe loved by many. A universe that helped shape what this franchise is today. This is their story.
That was later than I expected. Sorry about the long delay for reviewing Dark Empire 2 and Empire's End. Honestly, I didn't really want to read this. I really didn't. But people voted and they wanted to hear about Dark Empire. Oh, God. Honestly, despite how great the cover looks for the second edition of this, what this basically has Empire's End in there, which is very fucking hard to get. There really isn't anything special about Dark Empire 2 or Empire's End. Honestly, it was a sequel that wasn't necessary. And this is, of course, this is a problem with some comics. This is exclusive to Star Wars. When you have a first one that's great or good, when you have a sequel, it's usually awful. And it's just the problem. I'll probably get to the other video, but the problem with the Bantam era is everything had to be a fucking trilogy. During the before Vector Prime came out, everything had to be a trilogy. When Dark Empire, what made the first one good was it was a story that was self-contained, and you could just read that and just go straight to the Jedi Academy trilogy if you want to read it in chronological order. Dark Empire by itself, I consider it to be severely underrated. I think it gets a lot of undeserved hate. And a lot of the people that hate on the expanded universe, hate on Dark Empire, but they never really read the source material. They hate it because of one minor detail. And honestly, Dark Empire 2 and 3, I will not defend it because I think they are a piece of shit that did not need to get made. What makes it even worse, Dark Empire 2 and Empire's End, they're one of the occasions, if I had to list some stuff in the expanded universe, some stories that are so worthless that you don't miss on anything by not reading it, this would be it. Dark Empire 2 and Empire's End. Yes, New Jedi Order mentions Empire's End with Anakin, but other than that, do you really lose anything by not reading Dark Empire 2? No. Dark Empire 2 and Empire's End sucks. The story is forgettable. The new characters they introduce in here, I don't even remember any of their names because they're that forgettable. The artwork is worse. It's like they took what made the first one unique in terms of artwork And it just got shittier and shittier with each freaking series. It's just the way the Emperor died in Dark Empire 1 was badass. He died by his own power. His own dark side energy destroyed him. And someone as powerful as Darth Sidious, someone like him, he thinks he's better than everyone. And for him to get destroyed by his own power, to me, is a much fitting end for his character than him dying like a bitch by one of the Jedi. I thought he was a droid at the time. He's not a droid. He's a cyber. He's like someone who has cybernetic parts on his body. He absorbed him with the light side of the Force, and he dies that way. The problem with Dark Empire in general, at least the second one, this is why I did not talk about Dark Empire 2 and Empire's End, because Dark Empire 1 is a good story. This is shit that didn't need to happen. It didn't need to get made. I'm sorry, but if there's any EU story that I wish it was never made, other than the Crystal Star, because that's a piece of shit, Dark Empire 2 and Empire's End, I would rank them as some of the worst Star Wars stories ever conceived, because they didn't need to happen. I felt like Dark Empire 1 was a good series to bridge the gap between the Thrawn trilogy and Jedi Academy trilogy. This just felt so tacked on, it just felt unnecessary. It really just felt unnecessary. And the characters that Luke meets and trains as a Jedi, they don't even appear in the Jedi Academy trilogy. And the guy that he actually recruits, I don't even remember his name because he's that forgettable. He's never mentioned again. I don't even think Empire's End even mentions him by name. I think even the freaking writers forgot what he was. Just as it is forgettable. If I had to list some of the most forgettable Star Wars stories, this would be it. I mean, it just did not need to exist. I know I've been accused of hating on Disney canon, but this is one of the occasions where I call on bullshit in the original expanded universe. This story is complete garbage. It really is garbage. I mean, they should have just made one miniseries, and that's it. They didn't need fucking 2 more. And they're pointless, because they don't get referenced at all, except once. To me, a bad story in the expanded universe is if it's so bad that it's barely referenced at all, then it doesn't really have much of a purpose. It doesn't really have a reason to exist. Because how I view things in the Star Wars expanded universe, anyway, I value continuity. And to me, I take the good with the bad. You can't just say, I know some of you don't want to hear this, you can't just say, this isn't canon. It is. If you consider the original expanded universe the canon or a alternate universe, it still happened in Legends. You cannot say this didn't happen. A worse story is if something that doesn't even get mentioned, to me, then it doesn't matter. A bad story that doesn't really get mentioned has no relevance. It doesn't do anything. Okay, I'm gonna bring up an example. I'm not a big fan of the Black Fleet Crisis. I'll get to that when I review them. But they serve a purpose in the grand scheme of things. They develop Luke's character. Same thing with Leia. And they foreshadow things in New Jedi Order. So, the Black Fleet Crisis is not a worthless trilogy. It's another build-up for more stories. This trilogy did not need to exist. It only needed one. One. And the ending was just rushed. you could tell like they probably weren't given much to work with. It's like as bad as Empire's End was, they should have wrapped. They should have done at least 2 issues, at least 4. But it's just it's a 2 issue miniseries, and it's just wrapped because they didn't wrap up. You know, they didn't wrap up anything in Dark Empire 2 with the plot with the Galaxy Gun, Palpatine. So they had to do 2 more because it had an unresolved cliffhanger. And the unfortunate thing is, if you read Dark Empire 2, you have to read Empire's End because you fucking have a cliffhanger. It Dark Empire 2, it just doesn't even stand on its own. Actually, in a lot of ways, Dark Empire 2 might actually be the worst in the entire fucking trilogy because it's not referenced at all. None of the events of Dark Empire 2 are referenced. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right because I read a good chunk of this era of the expanded universe. Empire's End is referenced, not that much. It is not a comic I recommend. In fact, avoid it. If you want to read Dark Empire, read the first one and forget about 2 at Empire's End. You're not missing much. It's a really bad follow-up, and it may ruin what's good about Dark Empire 1. Now, the ranking. To me, it's fan fiction trash. It did not need to be made. It did not need to be conceived. It should have stayed as 1 miniseries, not 3. Fuck Dark Empire 2 and Empire's End. It's a shitty fucking story. One of the worst Star Wars comics I've ever read. And honestly, unless you're a collector like myself, don't bother with this piece of shit. This is Darsonovia over and out, and may the Force be with you.